Good afternoon and welcome to the City Club of Cleveland. My name is Paul Harrison and I am immediate past president of the City Club's Board of Directors. I am very pleased to introduce today's speaker, scientist and inventor Stanford Ovshinsky. When you examine our speaker's remarkable accomplishments, it is hard to know how to do justice in presenting a man who has so prolifically converted creative ideas into practical applications. So I think it's best to start from the beginning. Mr. Ovshinsky was born in Akron, Ohio in 1922 to immigrant parents from Eastern Europe. His father was a scrap metal dealer. He worked as a toolmaker and machinist in local shops before graduating from high school in 1941. He later left Ohio for a few years and then returned to Akron, where he opened a machine shop and patented his first invention, a high-speed lathe he named the Benjamin Center Drive, after his father. While continuing his work with machines, Mr. Ovshinsky also pursued, without any formal education beyond high school, his interest in the workings and disorders of the nervous system. In commenting on Mr. Ovshinsky's approach to enhancing his knowledge, a 2006 article in The Economist stated that, quote, Mr. Ovshinsky did not even go to college and credits his vast knowledge of science to the public libraries of his native Ohio. He likes to say, invention comes to the prepared mind, end quote. In 1960, Mr. Ovshinsky co-founded Energy Conversion Laboratory, later known as Energy Conversion Devices, or ECD, with the goal of developing his inventions in furtherance of addressing information, energy, and other societal issues. His work with ECD included collaboration with renowned scientists and the production of electronic memories, batteries, solar cells, and other products. In 2006, Mr. Ovshinsky launched another venture known as Ovshinsky Innovation LLC, and in that venture is pursuing his work on information and energy science. To date, his staggering accomplishments include approximately 400 United States patents and authorship of over 300 scientific papers on neurophysiology, amorphous semiconductors, and other subjects. His inventions have had a dramatic impact on the application of technology in modern society, including in the areas of electric power steering, batteries used in laptops, cell phones, cameras, and hybrid cars, solar energy panels, hydrogen fuel cells, and rewritable CD and DVD computer memories. His numerous awards and recognition include Time Magazine's Hero for the Planet Award in 1999 and The Economist Innovation Award for Energy and the Environment in 2005. In comparing Mr. Ovshinsky to another great inventor, Thomas Edison, the Economist article to which I referred earlier noted that both had humble beginnings and had their, quote, feet firmly planted on the ground, end quote. And the same article later states that, quote, they had the verve to envisage a radically different world, but were good at invented the practical things needed to get there, end quote. So that's a capsule summary of a man who, at 88 years young, continues to combine keen intellectual curiosity with the hands-on skills of a machinist and produce impactful solutions. I am very pleased to present, on behalf of the City Club of Cleveland, scientist and inventor extraordinaire, Stanford Ovshinsky.
Oh, thank you for such a marvelous introduction. I want to first say that I am very honored to be here. Living in Ohio, I certainly know the club and what it does. And, of course, I Stanley and Hope Edelstein for hosting my being here. They're wonderful environmentalists and wonderful people, and I knew Stanley back when I was in my teens, so it goes back quite a while. I wish there were more people like them. What I want to talk about is quite a serious thing, but I will, for example, of all the things that have happened to me and the many lives I've lived, I was born and bred in Akron. Less than an hour away from here was my first machine tool company in a barn there in 1945. 47. Nowadays, people start businesses in garages, I guess, but I was stuck with a barn where there was no heat and only places for animals to be tied in. And it taught me, first of all, that machine had universal usage, and what was important about it, it turned out that it helped win the Korean War. And I won't go into anything, but I was told that it was greatly important in that respect. But it taught me that machines are neutral. They can be used for war, but why not use them for peace, for building the better world that I had as my ideals from when I was very, very small. My father was not a scrap dealer. He collected the scrap of machine shops and foundries for many years by himself, working originally with a horse and wagon, and then with a truck. When he learned that you don't say "whoa" to stop when the truck. So, a wonderful man. I learned so much from him. The most important person, actually, in my life in terms of family. And my job in description is that I use innovation, inventions, to new science. I don't do incremental sorts of things, but new science and technology, which I love, in order to change the world for the better. And to do that, to solve the serious societal problems that we all face now, such as pollution, climate change, gases, wars over oil, and now particularly having grown up in the Great Depression, which frankly I knew nothing why it was called great. It was not a Great Depression. It was bad. And what bothers me, it is now resembling, or we are resembling, those times and places in terms of child poverty, in terms of lack of jobs, the high unemployment. Everybody pays a lot of attention to a lot of things. But coming from working people, I think that unemployment is a crime. Lack of education is a death note. I think that the world has to be made better, and so I've always felt it's my civic responsibility to solve the problems and build the industries that would be actually answers and stepping stones through the future. So I believe that America needs reindustrialization. Why do I say reindustrialization? It is no longer a great industrial company. Its basic industries are well known to you in Cleveland. I'm not talking about the minor ones that provided work, but the machine shops, the steel, the basic industry of great Cleveland at that time. We used to us, Cleveland and Akron was a place that we felt so strong about. That's no longer true. Akron, which was a rubber capital of the world, doesn't make an ounce, I don't believe, of rubber. Pittsburgh doesn't make much steel at all, not at all. Youngstown nearby, go on, I mean, they're in terrible shape, but they're trying. Steel is no longer what it should be, and certainly in my original business of machine tools, the Northeast section, the New England section, which was the great driver of modern-day technology, machine tools are not made there. They're bought in Japan or Europe. And Illinois and Indiana, no steel, and Illinois, pretty in terms of industry, not doing well at all. So that's a I hate to start off with the bad news, except to say, if you will stick with me, I'm going to tell you that there are answers to these things, and very realistic answers. But we have to understand that new industries must be made, and the problems must be solved. And it's so nice to be here to know that you believe in the environment, because the only thing that can be subject to build new industries today is green, has to be green. Not as a slogan, but I'll give you an example. 40% of the CO2, which we're all worried about, comes from the vehicular industry, the automobile, trucks, buses, etc. What can you do about it? Well, what I did about it, I enabled electric and hybrid industry. And those of you who've seen the movie Who Killed the Electric Car knows what happened then, but my licensees in Japan, who I had held back, Toyota and Honda and others, they said, my God, Stan, just because the United States' automotive industry is stupid, that we're not, please let us in. And I resisted as long as I could, because it was very difficult. And anyway, the United States needed competition. But 12 years later, the automotive industry in Detroit responded. When I grew up in the automotive industry, 3 months was a long time. 6 months was almost eternity. To lose 12 years because an industry refused to change and adapt to change and was arrogant about it is terrible. Many people suffered. The company suffered. They went to bankruptcy, except for Ford. And by the way, in the United States now, Ford is the leader of hybrids and building of electric cars. And I'm so glad that I stuck it through on the nickel metal hydride battery. There'll probably be new batteries coming along, but it had to be started. And now there's a chance, and not only a chance, but we are eliminating, Toyota said, hundreds and hundreds of millions of tons of CO2 and providing now jobs in the auto industry, because hybrid cars are the future, electric cars are the future. Now, the other 60%, which is a large amount when you think about industry, 60% is based upon fossil fuels such as oil, things that you run your utilities with. You make electricity. And where do you get your electricity? Generally, you get it from coal, now a bit from natural gas. But fossil fuels, whatever it is, will never be eliminated. It must be minimized to help the world survive. Because if we do not do something about what we're talking about, we're facing not what we're facing now, but a very dismal situation. And I believe that I don't know if many of you have ever heard of the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists. I happen to be a member. And they were the ones, my friends who build the bombs, and we're sorry about that, but felt it was necessary. But they wanted to make good use of nuclear energy. And they have a clock, what they call the Doomsday Clock, that goes back and forth between 5 or 6 minutes to midnight, which shows what the world is. And here's what they said. They said, we've always put in nuclear energy and the threats of nuclear warfare that would kill our civilization as being the reason for the clock. But about 3 years ago, they put in climate change as being almost equal to the death of civilization if it is not unchecked. Now, these are very serious things, but if you can do something about 60% of that, like we did with the auto industry will recover. It will not be an American industry anymore with leadership from America. General Motors will always be big in China and so on. But every part of the world now makes automobiles, and every part of the world does a pretty good job. And so we've lost our leadership. I feel very bad about that because it absolutely should not have happened. I'm going to describe what can be done for that 60%. The fact of the matter is that photovoltaics, which you hear about, is the possibility. I'm going to make it not a possibility. I've been making it a reality for many years. I started in the 1950s, which was, to say anything, quite early. But why is photovoltaics able to be a answer, a big answer on fossil fuel? In 1 hour of what the sun provides to the planet, our planet, 1 hour of the energy is sufficient for 1 year for the whole planet, whatever happens and whatever it does. Now, you can say, well, that's wonderful to hear, but why isn't it being done? And the reason it's not being done is that it is too damn expensive. So my personal job has been, I've got to make it cheaper than coal in order to have the impact of changing the world. Because the economic basis of our country and of the world has to do with energy. So energy that's green can be the source and is becoming the source of the possibilities of building new industries. And we need it. We need it for jobs. We need it so that we can have a feedback of science on our educational system so our students can be educated for the new jobs to come. I'll take just 1 minute to say that Cleveland has done quite well in terms of its education and agitation for the environment. And I hope that you can really make sure that fracking, which is now the subject of a lot of the oil companies who said, oh, we'll never run out of oil. But they knew that it was different. I worked with all the large oil companies. They knew the truth. So now they want to do the gas that you can get from, fracturing, the hydraulically fracturing the earth and the whatever for the gas that you need. And I must tell you that one of the great things that will be favorable to Cleveland is that you still have, as the last I saw, Lake Erie. You're part of the Great Lakes. And the Great Lakes, water is the third thing that I can say. The need for clean water is incredible importance to the whole world and will be important for the reindustrialization of the United States. But not wasting water to do the kind of fracking that they're talking about. Water is precious. Clean water is necessary, and the water supply must be clean. So I'm hoping that you will protect the Great Lakes like my partner for many years, who died just recently, was Bob Stemple, who had been president, chairman then, and chief executive officer of General Motors. He just died, and he's part of my new companies. We are partners. And one of the great things that he gave as his community service to the government, our national government, was the protecting the Great Lakes. Please protect your Great Lakes. It cannot be sold to you that it's going to be the end of unemployment. It will not be, but it may put us deeper and deeper into the holes, which we must do something about. So having fuels that are now, you can make electric cars. I took Priuses and made hydrogen cars where there was absolutely no emissions whatsoever, just a little water vapor. The Japanese, when they saw that, didn't believe it, and they put their hands under where the exhaust and drank it to be sure I wasn't joking. So hydrogen is in the future. I won't mention it now, but only tell you that the connection to the sun is that hydrogen was born in the Big Bang, was gases throughout the universe and condensed into stars. Our star is the sun, and we get for photovoltaics, it is where hydrogen atoms combine, fuse, and give out the energy and the photons, the light, which you see from the sun. That's how we get it, and that's the best place for nuclear energy anyway, 93 million miles away. I'll just go ahead on that. That'll be one of the things I suppose I'll hear about in the questions. But one of the most important things is our future is the young people. And that future is being imperiled tremendously. The world has become, our world, when I read the newspaper or listen to any part of the television news, is based upon opinions. One opinion as to another, and so on. In science, we don't allow opinions. We call that speculation, and that's good if you can make good on it. In science, we need facts. Where facts, data is king. And so I can only tell you that if you do not get an education, I did it without it. I have tried to stop, including former governor of Ohio who said, well, we don't need to put money into education. Look what Ovshinsky did. Shocked. We need money for education. We need new subjects being taught, new teachers to being brought up into. My family, I have several teachers, my son and grandchildren, teachers. It's a noble occupation. Protect it. It needs protection these days. But make sure that we have more of it. Not the schools that I went through in Akron that, frankly, resembled reformatories in many ways. But the free school that gets you to thinking and gets you to believe that there are things that you might accomplish in the world and have opportunity. There was no opportunity for us young people in the Great Depression. And now I see it's all over again, except now you have doctorates unemployed, PhDs unemployed. So with the declining industrial society, you cannot be a leader. And the United States our country was always the leader. When I grew up in Akron, in industry, and in Detroit then, where it became very active, it was a can-do thought by the engineers. We'll do anything. We can make that new world happen. Well, we have to do that again, and I hope. And by the way, one of the things that I miss about Cleveland is I worked with a great company called Sahio, and I see that they're no longer in existence. And Detroit, which was once the center of the world, the arsenal of democracy, the leadership of technology and science that industrialized the whole world, everywhere. Gone. It brings tears to your eyes. I say that with such a future, and with a war now on science that is being politicized so much, I have colleagues and collaborators who work in climate who get death threats for saying that their studies prove that there is climate change. Scientists being, it is, what's happened to our country? I hope that I can at least have you think about these things, because it isn't going to be solved by just science and technology in the United States. It has to be solved by people like yourselves. So I believe that we have a fundamental problem, and one of the things that can help us is the growth of energy in the world. It's growing very, very rapidly, and I'll just give you a couple things here. Energy is projected to rise by 53% in 2035, and the strong economic growth is developing from countries that are developing, and like China and the others. So we have a economic factor pushing us to make energy and make it clean. And what I would like to say is, close to the time I'm going to hear the bang of to stop my talk, that I would like to tell you that it can be done, so that you can know it can. Germany is doing it. Germany is doing it, and let me just give you Mr. Lauscher, the president of the head of Siemens, a great company. I've worked with them. Called the government's plans for renewable energy the project of the century. He said a 35% figure was achievable. That is of renewable energy. Siemens said that last year its renewable energy unit, which part of an environmental technologies division, has the strongest growth of any of its lines of business. Germany has done it, can do it. They're in much better shape than anybody. My God, we should have been the first ones to do it. And I know that we can have solar energy cheaper than coal, but I neither have the time nor do I want to be self-advertised on it, because it has to be done. I've proven that it is possible. Once in science that you prove that it is realistic and possible, then it's the matter of industrialization. And that is something I love, because a unique fact, as was mentioned, is I love building machines. I love building machines. So I just want to end my talk by saying that there are problems, and there will always be problems in the world. But in our case, the problem is the solution. The environmental problems and the problems that we're facing of unemployment is the salvation for what we want to achieve. So there are answers. We just need an educated and listening audience. You are that. I can just say what the president of MIT, Susan Hockfield, said. Manufacturing is simply this huge engine of job creation. There's an incredible value chain involved. I can tell you that I love manufacturing. I love working. I love working in the shops. I loved working in Ohio. I even have a plant of batteries that I set up here in what's Springboro? Yeah. But I've never been able, my work has always gone, unfortunately, to Asia and other places because America has a problem in new ideas and being able to find ways of supporting it. So I've stayed alive by building new industries, but using the machines and building them in the United States as well. I thank you for your attention. I want to tell you that I love Ohio. When I die, I'm going to be buried in Ohio. My mother and father are here, my late wife. So I wish you all well, but I wish our city well here. I wish our state well, and I wish that we all work together in common decencies and common efforts to change the world for the better. Thank you.
Today at the City Club of Cleveland, we are listening to a Friday forum featuring distinguished scientist and inventor Stanford Ovshinsky. We will return to him in a moment for our traditional City Club question and answers. We would encourage you to start formulating your questions now and also ask that you keep them short and to the point so that we can get as many questions in as possible. We remind you that members and guests alike are welcome to attend City Club forums, and we hope that everyone listening will join the City Club and become active in our ongoing civic dialogue. Please visit our website, www.cityclub.org, to see a full schedule of our upcoming programs. We welcome all of you here and those listening to WCPN 90.3 FM, WCLV, WTAM, or one of our many radio stations across the country. Our television broadcast partner is WVIZ PBS IdeaStream. Television broadcasts of the City Club are made possible by Cleveland State University and PNC, and our live webcast is supported by the University of Akron. In 2012, the City Club of Cleveland will turn 100 years old. We are planning a number of events and will be actively soliciting financial support through our campaign for a new century. Our celebration will begin on October 10th, this October 10, with a conference on free speech at the Ellen Theater here in Cleveland. For more information about our upcoming forums, please refer to our website, and again, that's www.cityclub.org. To learn more about the 100th anniversary events, you can visit the 100th anniversary tab on the website. Finally, if you wish to make reservations for any upcoming program, or if you'd like to order a CD or DVD of today's program, please call 1-888-223-6786 or 216-621-0082. Today is the annual Forum on the Environment, made possible by a generous gift from Stanley and Hope Edelstein in recognition of their lifelong dedication for nature and their many efforts to support environmental organizations, both locally and nationally. Joining us today are longtime City Club members Stanley and Hope Edelstein. Will you please stand and be recognized? Thank you for all you do for the City Club. We are also pleased to welcome students who are here as part of the City Club student program. Participation of these students is made possible by a generous grant from the Jeffrey David Epstein Memorial Student Fund. With us today are students from John Hay School of Science and Medicine. Will the students please stand and be recognized? And thank you for joining us. Now we would like to return to our speaker for our traditional City Club question and answer period. We welcome questions from everyone, including guests and students. Holding the microphone today is City Club Program Director Kerry Miller. First question, please.
Mr. Ovshinsky, thank you for an inspiring talk about your long life and career. I'm particularly interested in what you think needs to happen specifically to make photovoltaics competitive with coal. Are there technological advances that you think have to happen? Are there manufacturing advances? Are there public policy things that ought to happen?
Well, probably all of them, but I always start with the fact that politicians won't make the difference in science. They can help it, but scientists and technologists have to make the difference. So I'll give you the natural figures that I would not give you because this is what I do, and I came not to really speak about myself. I started something, a new field in science in the 50s called amorphous and disordered materials, out of which is very successful in information and in energy and information are the twin pillars of the global economy, and to me information has always been encoded energy. And so I built many plants that worked and were revolutionary for their time in photovoltaics, continuous web machines that ran around the clock, 7 days a week, and in the megawatts. I remember Sahil telling me, Stan, you want to build a 4-megawatt machine? There isn't that much in the whole world of use of photovoltaics. And I said, did you ever hear of a guy named Henry Ford? I mean, you don't have, your price goes down when you have to be price conscious. When your price goes down, you build, and it is a future. So now, what was wrong then with the work that I pioneered is that what was needed was, we proved it could be done, but what was needed is to make it cheaper. And my company, and that's why I left it, was cloning a machine that they thought would never work that turned out to be a money machine. And they weren't going to change, and I didn't think that was what I wanted to do. I wanted to solve the problem. And it runs, to give you, if you're a technologist, the machine that was running, doing such great work, was at 2 angstroms a second. What I've done is made a machine possible, and I proved it. I run at 300 to 400 angstroms a second. That means I've taken the throughput, which is necessary to make a gigawatt. If you do 300 to 400 angstroms a second, just 300, and only 12% efficiency, then you have gigawatt plant, about 1 gigawatt, 350 million, and so on. So at that point, you just turn it over to people who know what figures mean, and they come up everywhere in the world the same figure. That if you can do that, and by the way, there was another scientific problem I had to eliminate, which was there was a degradation factor in the materials, which I solved in the amorphous thin film materials. But if you do the arithmetic, simple arithmetic, 300 angstroms a second, 12% efficiency, no degradation, you're in the gigawatt range. And boy, did everybody laugh at that. Now everybody's talking about gigawatts. But what they're doing is they're doing it in stages. For example, Sharp, which is a great company in Japan, spent $8 billion so far doing it to get there. And I could do it in $350 million. So the fact of the matter is, capital cost, when you talk about gigawatts, capital cost is a penny per watt. And 6 cents in California, 6 cents a kilowatt hour is a lot different than what from solar, which is what we could do, is a lot different than what California is paying for now. Thank you for the question, because it was scientific, it was technological, holding it back, and now it is only economics of doing it that's holding it back.
Mr. Ovshinsky? Over here. You are an American classic, with a father who starts out with a horse-drawn truck to get
Wagon.
horse-drawn wagon, sorry, to gather up the product of machine shops and scrap, and here you are telling us how to address the challenge of the 21st century. And you've said you don't want to talk about yourself, but I would ask you to share for all of us, and perhaps especially for these students, the point in your life when you made the transition from the mechanical, the things that you could hammer and pound and cut with a lathe, to the things that were more abstract. And I love your expression, amorphous and disordered materials, an early name for chaos theory, probably. But how did this happen to you? Tell us a little about that interface between the man who loved to make mechanical machines and the person who was comfortable in the world of chemistry and electronics and the abstractions that enabled you to move not just from making a thing, but to working in the realm of ideas and the realms you've described to us today.
Well, I'm very moved by the question, because it's very important, and that is that my father, when he had to work every day, there was no money. He didn't have a salary. He earned his living every day. And when he was sick, which was rarely, I just put on my work clothes and did the same. It was the hardest work I've ever done. And when I got a degree from a university in Ohio, I said very, very short words. I said to me, was totally, I worked in Ohio's farms, which I did. I did stoop labor for 10 cents and 12 cents an hour. I worked in Ohio's factories, which I certainly did. And I got my education, and everybody was listening intently, I got my education in Ohio's public libraries. So to me, one of the great crimes again is the closing of the libraries. I wouldn't be standing here if we didn't have a one-room library in our poor section of town. How I did that is I looked upon science. I was very excited about science from the earliest age, but I was also technologically very accurate, and I was proud of that. And therefore, I came to the conclusion that there was something wrong with science. God didn't make disciplines, man did. So I would not be tied to any one discipline. I am a fellow of American Physical Society. I have these awards from American Chemicals. But to me, those are just names. So how I did it is by always studying, learning the complete things that go along with fundamental science, coupled with the fact that technology is equally as important, because technology is science. You couldn't look at the stars unless you had better telescopes. What you do is you have to develop new kinds of machines that allow you, enable your scientific processes to exist. So I never divided technology from science. I find that in disciplines they make fun of each other, but if you're interdisciplinary, what can they say? So that's how. But it is, you must set a fire that your interest. You must become stimulated and be able to really learn. And the one thing I can say, and it may sound like a generalization, I still learn. Learning excites me. Discovery is ecstasy for me. I love it. The days in the shop was the same. Never had a job that I didn't really love. Use it as stepping stones, but keep learning. When you're in school, just read all the time. Let's hope that the libraries are not shut and they're not burning books. Let's just make sure that everybody has an opportunity based upon their potential. And in my work, the best thing I've ever done in my life that I'm proudest of, I build a culture in the industrial plants that I set up that brought people's potential up that they never even thought they had, never even questioned they had. Isn't that right? So the fact of the matter is, that makes me proud that I have seen so many people, young people, get set on fire and help me change the world, made contributions on their own rights. And I can only say that that's the way I can describe it. I'm sorry I can't be more specific.
My name is Darnisha Higgins, and I just wanted to know what are some problems or challenges you think we need to face in order to make hydrogen fuel dominant?
Well, that's a very good thing. I did it on the same basis. I'm very practical, and I hate to have the technology expensive, because we wouldn't have had the automotive industry, as I said, if Henry Ford hadn't gone down to $350 an automobile. I mean, you could in 1910 to spend $25,000 for a handmade car was not a business. So the fact of the matter is that what's needed for hydrogen, the fuel cell, is they use platinum or palladium as their catalyst, and they do, and they have a membrane that's a marvel of machining, but it's so damn expensive, it was bad. So I just made my catalyst out of using I do atomic engineering, making materials that act like they're platinum or palladium. And my membrane was just a piece of polymer. And it worked. And in fact, in Ohio, I guess they're still using some of it. But I was out of the company by then, and I could do no further things. It'll come, but when it comes, it will need a new infrastructure of hydrogen stations, which are easy. The U.S. government had me build a mobile hydrogen carrier and took it all over the country to show that it was very feasible. So changing society is a very, well, how can I say anything more than if you're going into being innovator, or if you're going to change the world, you better be persistent, better have courage, and you better struggle. I happen to like problems because I like to solve them, but I wish the hell there wasn't that many of them.
Mr. Ovshinsky, you played a very important role in the development of the electric battery, which can be used in automobiles a number of years ago. Unfortunately, the people who picked it up most were the people in the Orient. And my question is, to what extent do you think it's possible for the United States to again become a major player, shall we say, in developing workable automobiles with electric batteries that are light enough to be carried around in their automobiles without absorbing too much energy?
Yeah. It is being done while we speak. Ford puts out its entire. I drive not only a Prius. In my family, there's a Ford because one of my son-in-laws works at Ford. They're doing a great job. General Motors is trying. They were first the leaders. That's how Bob Stemple and I got together. But meritocracy disappeared in time in the automotive industry. And in fact, Bob was the last of the meritocracy. Great engineer, great person. It's not going to happen. Actually, it's happening now. Japan and Korea and Germany and the United States are all now building hybrid cars. And hybrid cars really are very successful in helping end the problem. Electric cars are coming. And so I built them a long time ago. Your senator here from Ohio was one of the first to drive an electric car. He came to Akron while I was showing it around. And he says, "Does it work?" I said, "Well, drive the damn thing." You don't claim in industry. You show. It's showing instead of telling. And he did, and he became quite a fan of it. And so I can only say that it's happening, but much too slow. Our industries were leaders, but they got old. They got old, and I could always tell when they were going to go out of business. You have to adapt. You have to change. And if you don't adapt and change, as humans have had to do since they were early primates, you can't make it. And that's why I am working now. Not at my age, I feel 19. I'm working because somebody's got to do it.
Mr. Ovshinsky, I asked this question because I couldn't quite get clear what you felt about global warming. Do you think it's the result of the Earth's natural warming and cooling, or do you think that the industrialization, the air, the smoke and so forth has a lot to do with it? And a question that I would have too is, what do you think we should do about the emissions from the factories and so forth?
Well, coming from industry where jobs were important and always are, when the smokestacks in Akron of the rubber companies showed black, we were all happy. The jobs, we were all happy. We didn't know the poisons like benzene. We didn't know what it was like. The pits, the West Virginians who worked with us called it the gum mines. I can only tell you that pollution is bad for you. I'm a living proof of that. But what you really have to understand, it is not my opinion or scientists' opinion. The data clearly shows, and over 98% of all scientists who are involved in the field agree to it, that global warming is not the normal cycle of warming. It is not what happens when there are sunspots. It is nothing of the kind. That's pure propaganda. I happen to have gone to school with one of the guys who became a professor and works for the industries that lies about it. So I can only tell you that climate change is real. It's not opinion. It is complete data. It is not made by ideologists. They'd be laughed out of the science. It is made by humans doing the work and expanding their activities, which are good. Now that it is so dreadful, and so threatening to our civilization, it's up to us to make sure we do have, take care of our emissions and clean it up. We can do it. We're doing it. We don't need to swallow it, but buy the water. By the way, water is very important, and I can do something about that with photovoltaics. So it is not a debatable subject. I can give you any literature that has been vetted throughout the world by all the countries who know that that's a fact. It should not be ideology that drives us. It's got to be ideals and actuality.
Today at the City Club of Cleveland, we have been listening to scientist and inventor Stanford Ovshinsky. Thank you very much, Mr. Ovshinsky. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. This forum is now adjourned.
For information on upcoming speakers or for podcasts of the City Club, go to cityclub.org.